I'm also going to share my screen here. All right. We have A and B leagues on Mondays, B and C leagues on Tuesdays, B and C leagues on co-ed for co-ed. All info for all the leagues can be found on our website. So if you're ever wondering about how to find information, just go to zeelandrecreation.org. There's multiple ways you can find our adult softball page. 1 second here. One second, take a little bit of time. All right, so you can find the adult softball page by hovering your mouse over the sports tab. Go into adult softball there. You can also find it by clicking on adult programs or hovering your mouse over the adult programs either way, then scrolling down to sports programs, clicking on it there. There's multiple ways to find the appropriate page. So please refer to this page throughout the season for all information. As you can see, we posted our game schedules here. So if you're wondering, all the game schedules are posted here. Those of you that are in the C League for co-ed, just note that we did update the schedule today because of a team that dropped this morning. But I think all of you are aware of that. League rules are here. The roster form, rosters are due tomorrow. So remember, this is a Google form now. So when you click on this, it's sent to a Google form as opposed to doing it hard copy or via email. So those of you that still email me your rosters or do a hard copy, please you don't need to do that anymore. Please do it electronically instead. As you add players throughout the season, go to the roster change form. So if you've already submitted your roster, looking to add a player to your roster, just click on the roster change form. As long as you do it a minute before the game starts, you're good to go. Enter the date, team name, night and league you play in, and the name of the person right there and hit submit, and you're all set. So that's kind of some of the logistics. 1 second. Looking at league rules, we'll go over the whole thing here. Those of you that played summer ball with us, there are no changes. Everything is the same. Those of you who have not played with us this summer, please note there have been changes even since last fall league. So we're going to go over some certain things here. We're not going to go over everything, but just highlight a few things. Number 5, team managers are responsible for the behavior of its team members and spectators, communicating league rules to team members, submitting team fees, submitting rosters, and responding promptly to me. So please make sure you take that responsibility seriously. Umpires will look to you to help reel in a player that's crossed on the line for being inappropriate with umpires. So please help us out and make sure all your teammates, even if they're pissed about something, just do a good job of trying to remain respectful. Weather cancellation, just know that if you do not receive an email from me, games are on. I will always email you if we are canceling something. So you do not need to email me at 5 o'clock or 4:30, say our game's on. If you have not received an email from me, games are on. If you have received an email from me, games are off. The other ways to find out that information, follow us on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Zeeland Rec. We also have a weather cancellation line you can call, which is highlighted right here. We also post it on the front page of our website if we ever cancel anything as well. Tobacco and alcohol are not allowed on the premises, so please help make sure you and your team honor that. Going to number 10, this is a pretty significant change that we have implemented this year. Those of you that did summer ball know how it works, but every bat must meet 2 different standards. They must have one of these 5 stamps on them. So every bat you use has to have one of those 5 stamps, and then once it has one of those 5 stamps, we test it for compression. The reason we do that is because we don't want any hot bats that are unsafe for pitchers or infielders, or illegal bats that have been filled illegally in any kind of way. So this is a safety issue that meets USA standards. It's a good move. Some local leagues in the area follow this as well. What we're trying to do is just eliminate bats that nobody should be using that's dangerous for everybody, especially pitchers. So just know if you did not have your bat tested yet and you're planning on bringing it to the site next week, that's fine, but we won't even test the compression if it doesn't have one of these 5 stickers. So the first thing we do is look for a sticker. Second thing we do is then test the compression. If it meets those standards, we're good to go. It's got to have 1,050 compression in order to be used in our leagues. We use the same exact stickers that Holland Rec uses. So if you've been tested through us and it's approved, you can get that. You can also play with that in Holland Rec without it getting tested, and vice versa. If you've gotten a bat tested in Holland Rec, You can use that in our league as well. We use the exact same stickers across the board. Highlighted here is what happens if you use a bat that is illegal. First offense is that player will be called out, and the bat will be removed from the game. Second offense is that player will be ejected. Third offense is a 2-game suspension, if not more, depending on the severity of the offense. We have not had that issue yet, thankfully. If you're ever concerned about somebody using a bat that they shouldn't be using, just simply ask the umpire, hey, can you please check that bat for the sticker? If the bat doesn't have a sticker, it's an illegal bat and can't be used. Even if it meets the compression, if it hasn't gone through our testing system, we're assuming it's illegal, that bat will be removed. So just an FYI, me and Wayne, our site supervisor, will be on site for all nights next week prior to games. Just find us under the pavilion and kind of closer to Bilmar Field. We'll be sitting out there. Bring your bat to us, get it tested before your game. We were also out there at DeWitt tonight from 6 to 7 testing some bats. So please make sure all your teammates, any bats they want to use, they find me or Wayne on site next week before your game starts and get that bat tested. Game protests. You can protest 2 different things, a rules protest, a roster protest. If you do a rules protest, it must be verbalized to the umpire before the next pitch is thrown. If you want to do it after the next pitch is thrown, you've already lost your opportunity. All you simply do is let the umpire know, I want to protest this game based on the rule that you just incorrectly implemented, for example. Then you let them know exactly what you're protesting. They pass that on to me. I make a decision after talking to you and the umpire the next day. Same thing is true about roster. If you think somebody's playing on a team they should not be playing on because they're not on the roster, or they haven't played 3 games, like in a tournament, they haven't played 3 games for that team during the regular season, as an example, simply tell the umpire that you're protesting the game based on a roster violation. Tell them which player or players you are protesting it based on. The umpire will then approach that player or players and ask for their first and last name. Those players give our umpires the first and last name. They pass those names on to me. I then verify if they're on the roster or not. If they're not on the roster, it's a forfeit. If they are on the roster, it's good to go. If somebody refuses to give their name in that situation, just please know that it's going to be an automatic forfeit. Roster guidelines, just to be clear on this, no team will be allowed to play unless the roster is officially submitted. As I already talked about, do it through the form on our website. It must be submitted to me by Friday of this week, so please make sure you do that ASAP. You may not have a player play for your team if they're not on your official roster. As I already said, if you forgot to add somebody that's playing for you on a certain night, that's fine. Just add their name through the form that I already showed you, the roster change form on our website. No player can be on your roster if they're on another roster in your competition level. So somebody can play on the B League at 6:30 and go play in the C League at 8:30 on the same night. That's fine. What they can't do is play in the game at 6:30 in the B League and 7:30 in the B League. You can only be on one roster per competition level. Letter D, we already talked about additional players due to the roster change form, but just an FYI, you may not add players after September 25. That's our roster lock date for fall ball. To participate in tournaments in fall ball, you must have played in at least 2 regular season games with that team. So even if they're on your roster, they can't come play for you in the tournament if they have not played for you at least 2 times during the regular season. The reason for that rule is we want tournament teams to actually be a reflection of the regular season team, as opposed to a completely different team nobody has seen yet in the regular season, and you bring a bunch of ringers in for the tournament. We want to be consistent across the board. 13, if you're the home team, which is the first team listed on the schedule, that means you're the home team. You sit in the third base dugout and you manage the scoreboard. If you don't know how to do it, the umpires will show you before the first game. All you got to do is just update the score and innings. That's pretty much it. Start a game, you must have 8 players to start a game. If you don't have 8 players to start a game, we give a 5-minute grace period. If someone has 7 or less players after that 5-minute grace period, it's not an automatic forfeit. What the umpires will do is go to the opposing team manager and say, you can either accept the forfeit win or you can play 10 on 7, but if you lose, you lose. We recommend playing that game out rather than accepting the forfeit because everybody left their homes to play that night. You all paid to play softball this season. We recommend playing it out, but just please know if you do choose to do that and you lose, you lose that game. Ejections, if you or one of your teammates gets ejected, please know they must leave the premises, the entire facility, the parking lot. They must go home immediately. They can't hang out in the parking lot, so please help our umpires do that. make sure we don't have any issues in that situation. If you're ejected from a game or a teammate is, it's an automatic 1-game suspension. Depending on the severity of the offense, it goes up from there. I make that based on the situation and the report I get from the umpire and talking to both team managers before I make a decision like that. But it's automatically a 1-game suspension for every ejection. You can appeal suspensions within 24 hours in a written email to me by you, not the person ejected, but by you specifically. Completed game policy number 17. A game terminated by inclement weather will be deemed a completed game if 5 innings are completed or 45 minutes of game time has elapsed, or if the home team is leading after 4.5 innings. So if we cancel a game, after those points, it counts as a completed game if it's reached those standards. If it has not reached those standards, we have a mid-game postponement. We start the game in the exact same situation as when it ended at a later time that I will determine. So if there's a person on second, the score is 5-3 and it's bottom of the third, that's exactly where we end, where we start the next game. This part here at the bottom of additionally, best efforts should be made to keep the batting order and the same during the rescheduled game, but that is not mandatory just because it's not always possible if the same players show up. But we want to do everything we can to have that situation start in the exact same scenario as it ended due to weather. Tournament, just know that every tournament game is run exactly like regular season games except for the championship game. Championship games play a full 7-inning with no time limit game. In championships, there is mercy rule still in effect, but if no mercy rule does not go into effect, you play a full 7-inning game for a tournament championship. Tournament structure, the home team is the higher seeded team. It's a single elimination tournament. We typically move the first place team during the regular season up to the next level for the tournament, and the last place team down a level for the tournament. Now for some rule changes. Obviously, metal spikes are not allowed. No changes to the ball that we're using. This is a pretty significant change. We are now using a strike zone as opposed to a strike line. So a pitch is called a strike when the ball crosses the plate within the width of the plate and between the batter's front knee and back shoulder, based on if the batter was standing adjacent to the plate. We no longer use a strike line, so it no longer matters where the ball lands. It only matters where the ball crosses the plate. Keep in mind the grace foul ball things is still the same. Once there's 2 strikes, you get 1 grace foul ball. A second foul ball after you get to 2 strikes is considered an out. Intentional walk, you may do so by simply informing the umpire. Pitch arc rules are 10-6. 55-minute game time limit. So a 55-minute timer will be started at the first pitch. No new inning can begin 55 minutes after the first pitch. If an inning is in process, when the 55-minute time limit arrives, the top and bottom of that inning may be finished and then the game is over. If an inning ends with 5 minutes or less remaining in the 55-minute game time limit, the flip-flop batting order rule goes into effect, which I'll explain next. So let's say an inning ends and there's 5 minutes left in the 55 minutes. What we do to try to ensure games end as close to on time as possible, so games later in the evening start on time, is we do a flip-flop batting order rule. So what that means is this: if an inning ends with 5 minutes or less remaining in the 55-minute game time limit, the losing team then bats first to start the last inning, even if it's a 1-run difference. The purpose of this rule is to allow games to end in a timely manner so that all games that evening start as close to on time as possible. You guys all know how frustrating it is to show up for an 8:30 or 9:15 game, and you still have to wait 30 to 45 minutes to get that game in, then you get home at 11 o'clock. We do not want that to happen. That's why if a new inning starts with 5 minutes or less left, the losing team bats first, no matter who the home team is or away team is. Mercy rules, this is new as well. We changed this because feedback we got, which makes a lot of sense to me, was we were ending games in the 3rd inning for a 20-run lead when both teams wanted to keep playing, but we're telling people to go home. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we extended those by 1 inning. So it's a 20-run mercy rule after 4 innings, 15-run mercy rule after 5, 10-run mercy rule after 6. All those are bumped back 1 inning. So no games anymore ever end in the 3rd inning. You at least play 4 full innings in a game until a mercy rule goes into effect. Also new, some batting order rules. A couple of things just to clarify here. A team can have as many players as they want in the batting order. Once the batting order is established, players in the lineup cannot bat in a different spot in the lineup. Pinch hitting or subbing is allowed as long as the pinch hitter isn't batting already elsewhere in the batting order. If the same batter is pinch hit for the same by the same pitch hitter 2 times in a row, that player is then replaced by that pinch hitter. If a spot in the batting order is skipped without a pinch hitter or sub, for instance, a player had to leave early and no subs were available to replace them, an out is recorded each time that spot in the lineup comes around. Injury exceptions obviously exist. Defenders are interchangeable at any time. Doesn't matter what players you have in your batting order, you can interchange defenders at anytime you want. Doesn't matter. We do not tie games. We do not play out tie games in the regular season for the same reasons we don't. For the same reasons we have the flip-flop batting order rule. A tie counts in the standings just as much as a win or loss does. And if we would go into overtime in these games, that would really extend the games and the rest of the evening to be really delayed, and we're not comfortable with that. And we've gotten a lot of feedback that people do not like that. But in the surveys we've sent out to team managers that many of you have filled out have confirmed that people are good, for the heavy majority, people are good with having ties so that games actually start on time. No changes to courtesy runner rule, any of this stuff. We're all good there. One clarification here. Progressive 3 and up home run rule. This is pretty unique to Zeeland. Not a ton of leagues are doing this, but what this means is 3 over the fence home runs are allowed for each team per game. However, if both teams reach the 3 home run max, each team can then hit 1 more home run. If one team hits a 4th home run, they cannot hit a 5th home run until their opponent hits a 4th home run. Once both teams hit a 4th home run, then both teams' home run max extended to 5 home runs and so on. However, in the last inning, whether it's due to the time limit or because it's the 7th inning, the home team may not go +1. You can match, but you can't go +1 if you're the home team in the last half inning. Ball retrieval, just help us retrieve balls as best you can so we don't lose a bunch of balls. Co-ed rules, just pay attention to these co-ed and gender rules. If you're a co-ed team, make sure you read all this stuff carefully before your first game so there's no confusion there. And that's all I got on rules. So hopping over back to the agenda here really quick. Umpires. For the most part, guys, you do a really good job of treating our umpires well. However, there are obviously exceptions to that. What we're asking you is to please, we understand you're going to disagree with calls and think some of the umpires are bad. Please know we're trying to find the best umpires we possibly can, and we're trying to train them as best we can. But please know that there's a massive umpire shortage going around the entire lakeshore. We are, for the most part, trying to find a living, breathing person to umpire these games. We oftentimes do have umpires quit because of the treatment that they get from players. So please know the best thing you can do to help our umpires continue to be better is to treat them well. The more times people treat an umpire poorly, the more times I have ump tell me that they're never going to umpire again because they're sick of people yelling at them and whining and complaining about things. I'm not saying that umpires are always right. I understand that there's a lot of judgment calls in umping and there's a lot of calls that go wrong. What I'm asking you to do is to understand they're not trying to make a mistake. We're often in a shortage of umpires. There's not a long line of people wanting to do this. We typically barely get enough just to cover a league. And to understand that they're not trying to screw up, and please give them grace and please thank them after games as opposed to yell at them when they screw up. As team managers, we need your help with that. Please make sure your teams are in line and not crossing boundaries and treating people with respect at all times. Rosters are due by Friday. Injuries, there's first aid kits on site. So please know if you have somebody gets a line drive to the head or shin or whatever, we have Band-Aids and gauze and ice and stuff on site. There is not an AED on site. So please know if you have any kind of medical emergency with heart or collapse or anything, please know that is not on site. Go right to 911 and get medical emergency people there. Please help communicate this stuff to teammates. And I really appreciate that. Besides that, that's all I got tonight. Everyone, if you have questions for me, I'm going to stick around for a Q&A at this time. If you do not have questions, you are more than welcome to leave, and we will see you next week on site. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your time. And for those that have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Brett, this is Ryan. Can you hear me?
Hey, Ryan. Yeah, I can.
Cool. On the co-ed batting order,
Yep.
so obviously if you've got the same number of guys and gals, no problem. If you have 6 gals and 5 guys, I see that you can have 2 girls back to back, so that's no problem.
Yep.
But if you have 6 guys, 5 gals,
Yep.
then do you have basically two different batting orders? So
You
the
got to
girls
weave
are
it.
always going between the guys.
Yeah. You got to weave it in. The batting order at that point, and a little bit is less structured because it's going to change a little bit because the women have to weave in to make sure men do not bat back to back. So women will get more at bats than men in that case. Does that make sense?
Yep, I figured that's what it was. Makes the scorebook kind of tricky, but
I know. Yeah, I know. But the easiest way to summarize it is like men cannot bat back to back. So if you have less women than men, you just got to weave them in to make sure they don't. So the batting order kind of gets flushed down the toilet. The umpires will be aware of that, obviously, because that rule trumps our consistent batting order rule, and we're all on the same page.
Right.
Good question. Anybody else have any questions?
Right. Thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, I have a question. If you got it tested, your bat tested in the summer and
Yep.
it passed, do you still have to test it
Nope.
again in the fall?
Nope. So each year when we do this, it's going to be for like a spring, summer, fall season. So you get tested once during
Okay.
in the spring, you're good to go through fall, but then that will reset every spring. So it's kind of like it's a 2-season thing.
Okay.
Resets, and then we'll get new stickers that all the umpires will be looking for next spring. That will last through next fall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good question. Anybody else? All righty. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.